Welcome to another RSR tonight. Better late than never. I am predicting the 2023 MLS Cup Playoffs. It'll get views. This will still get views, so it doesn't really matter when it comes out. It'll accumulate. But I still got it out before the wild card games are even played. It'll still get some views tomorrow. But it is what it is. There you go. So, a new MLS playoff format, a new year, a new place to watch the matches. Apple wanted more, they gave them more. 2 wild card matches with the 8-9 teams, a best of 3 round of 16, pretty much. First round of 16. Then, single elimination the rest of the way after that best of 3. I know it's crazy, but we will explain it when we get to each round. So, of course, starting with the wild card matches in the East, then the West. So we'll do this. So the wild card, simple. 8 seed versus the 9 seed. 8 seed hosts the 9. It's sort of like the baseball wild card back when it was 2 wild cards for the past decade. From 2012 to 2021, save for 2020 because that was weird. So pretty much 9 years, 8 years of that is pretty much like that. Your bottom 2 teams that still made the playoffs are playing a game against each other to play in and be that 8 seed. So 9 could be the 8. 8 could be the 8. But it's simple. 90 minutes. If it's tied, it goes to extra time. If it's still tied after 120, we go to penalties in both matches. They're both played tomorrow night. We'll be live for both. We'll review the Western game because that comes second, of course. But we'll start with the East. Charlotte FC versus the New York Red Bulls. Charlotte hosting the Red Bulls for the right to face FC Cincinnati, the Supporters' Shield winners. For me, I think Charlotte's the better team here. I know Red Bulls have been in the playoffs for 14 straight years, but they got lucky. Montreal, honestly, were the better team. But in the end, they didn't make it. Thanks to the John Tolkien penalty. There were some calls that were questionable in that Nashville game. I don't think the Red Bulls really deserve to be here, but they got here. Do I think that means anything? No. They're going to get eliminated very, very quickly. They're going to get eliminated very quickly. If they don't, I'll be shocked. They deserve to get eliminated quickly. I think Charlotte started to wake up a bit. They did make the semifinal of Leagues Cup. They've gotten better. They have played well against Miami. Colino was standing on his head. The way this Charlotte team is playing together, I like what I see. Charlotte beats the Red Bulls to face Cincinnati in the Eastern Wild Card. Then, in the West, we got Sporting Kansas City hosting the San Jose Earthquakes. The Earthquakes draw Austin. Portland bottles it heavily. And Sporting KC beats Minnesota. They both pop in on the last day to play this wild card game. If it's Kansas City, we got a Missouri derby. Well, no, it's Kansas City, Kansas versus St. Louis, Missouri. But we got a Kansas City, St. Louis derby. And if not, it's San Jose versus St. Louis, which I honestly don't want to see. Personally, I'd rather it be SKC. San Jose, St. Louis seems a bit heatless, but you know, whatever. With that being said, I got Sporting Kansas City beating San Jose. San Jose has the more, I would say, meaningful players. Like, you have a guy like Espinosa. They got more game-breaking players. Obobase, Espinosa. They do. Here's the problem, though. Kansas City this year seems well-drilled. They've played well defensively. They still have Johnny Russell, who's back to his old self. Daniel Shallowy having a good season, I think. Agata having a good season. Polito's back to his old self, and he stayed. I think Kansas City, in a one-legged tie, again, these wild cards are single elimination. Everything but the first round is single elimination. Weird, I know. We'll get there again. But for me, even if it has to go to penalties, this could go all the way. This could be a bit crazy. I think Kansas City's the better team. I think Kansas City's the more experienced, the more well-rounded, and the more well-prepared team. So I think Kansas City wins the Western Wild Card to face St. Louis in the first round. Now, on to the first round. Again, it's a best-of-3 series in the first round, the round of 16, whatever you want to call it. It is a best-of-3 series. It is a 90-minute match. Each match is 90 minutes, and then straight to penalties. So if you're drawing over the 90, you will go straight to penalties. The winner of the penalties counts as the winner of the game. That is a 1-win for whatever team gets that win. If there's a 2-0 sweep, if the first team to 2. It's like baseball again. First team to 2. So that could be a 2-0 sweep or a 2-1 win. But whoever wins 2 games goes on to the next round. So there could be a lot of sweeps. And you know what? That won't count as part of my predictions, but I'll predict what I think is going to happen. But the first game is at home of the better seeded team. So Cincinnati would host game 1. Charlotte hosts game 2. Cincy hosts game 3. So 1 and 3 are hosted by the better seeded team. 2 is hosted by the lower seeded team. So, speaking of that, let's go on. FC Cincinnati, the Supporters Shield winners versus Charlotte FC in my prediction, but I don't think it really makes a difference who they play. I think FC Cincinnati, they do seem a bit fraudulent to me, but I think they got a favorable draw, at least up until the conference final. I don't think they're going to win the MLS Cup. I don't. I think they're going to fall to the Supporters Shield curse. There are questions about their team. Aaron Bupenza has not got in well, or he hasn't meshed well with the team yet. We'll see how that turns out next spring, especially when Brandon Vasquez is gone, because that's probably a likelihood. But they're sort of trying to give more run to Bupenza because they know they have to. That could shoot them in the foot. Luciano Costa is an MVP candidate. No question. Hell, he may be the MVP. Unless the voters are stupid and they vote for Messi. He only scored 1 league goal. Let's not do that, please. Just because Messi mania is a thing doesn't mean you have to bend to it. Don't. Come on now. But FC Cincinnati, I think they're good enough to beat Charlotte. And honestly, I think it's a 2-0 sweep. I think it's a 2-0 sweep. Cincy wins both games. They walk through it with ease. 2-0. Cincinnati, they move on to the conference semifinals. The quarterfinals, pretty much. But yeah, conference semifinals. Eastern semifinals, Cincinnati moves through. Next up, Philadelphia Union versus New England Revolution. Even though Philly are having a bad moment in their locker room, they're losing Bedoya, they're losing Wagner, it looks disastrous up in there. New England is just as disastrous, and they were more fraudulent anyway. They're on their 3rd coach of the year. They've got locker room problems out the wazoo, and they've always been fraudulent this whole year. The fact they finished so high is just mind-boggling to me, to be completely honest. Or they did fall down a good bit, but 1-8, 2-7, 4-5, 3-6. So they did fall, but for me, just because both teams are in turmoil, I think Philly's the better team in that situation. But I think it'll be a 3-game series. I think Philly wins both games at home. The Revs wins the game at Gillette. But Philly still goes through. I still think they have enough to get through and have more cohesiveness to get through. But again, this one could be a complete curveball. I still think Philly gets through in the end. Columbus Crew versus Atlanta United. Atlanta United will not have Thiago Almada in game 1, and they'll be on the road at not historic Crew Stadium, lower.com field. They will be on the road in Columbus. They host the 2nd game. Of course, Atlanta hosts the 2nd. Columbus hosts the 3rd. I think Columbus wins game 1. I think Atlanta wins game 2. Columbus wins game 3. I think Columbus right now, as it is a better setup team anyway. I think they have better tactics. They have a better forward line. They have a better defense. Atlanta, they do have Yorgos Giacomakis, but if you don't have Thiago Almada for the first game, they put you in a 1-0 hole. You have to win at home and then go back to Columbus and win again. You have to win 2 straight. And I think that's going to be a problem because Atlanta, as you've seen, has not won without Thiago Almada. They just don't win without him. They may have in this season, but it seems to me more likely that they lose. More times than not, they lose or draw, or they don't look too good without him. So, again, Columbus, I think they're more cohesive anyway. I think they're more ahead in their process, which is weird because Gonzalo Pineda's been there for like 3 years. He was there in 21. They should be further ahead in their process, but they're not. Columbus is, though, with Wilfried Nancy, and I think Wilfried Nancy is just a better manager anyway. So I think Columbus goes through to the conference semifinals. And then finally in the East, round 1, Orlando City versus Nashville SC. Again, I think it's not a three-legged tie, but a 3-game series. I think Orlando wins both at home. I think Nashville wins at their house. Again, it's hard to win on the road in MLS, even if you're a good team. But Orlando, Duncan McGuire's been amazing. Orlando runs on Duncan. If he goes off, they could sweep. If he plays well, they're probably going to win. If he doesn't play well, Nashville's probably going to find a way to bunker and beat him. But Nashville, 7th place, they've been a bit questionable since Leagues Cup. They have been. And I personally think that that's not a good thing. Yes, maybe in playoffs that system really works. Here's the problem. A 3-legged tie, maybe 1 game. I don't know, it'll be 2. Like, you'll have to pull something out of the hat for getting that second win. Unless Duncan McGuire can't score, then you will go through. But I don't see why he would stop now. Orlando runs on Duncan. So, Orlando wins both home games. Nashville wins their home game. But Orlando moves on. Then, now in the West, St. Louis City SC. Yeah, I'm hopping on the bandwagon. Why wouldn't I be? Come on now. Why wouldn't I be? Hey, at least I have somebody in the playoffs. Versus Sporting Kansas City. To me, people say that this is going to be an upset possibility. I don't see it. Yeah, Kansas City did beat St. Louis about what? A month and a half, 2 months ago? It's been a little bit, but it hadn't been too long. But St. Louis then played them again and worked them. So, honestly, I think it's a 2-legged tie. I think it's a sweep. 1 win in St. Louis, 1 win in Kansas City. I think St. Louis are going to bring their A game in the playoffs. They're going to bring their best. I think they have a point to prove after Leagues Cup as well. They finished top of the West. They have a point to prove. I think they're going to win both games. They're going to sweep the series, St. Louis. They're just better. Anything could happen, but I think Sporting used their luck back in the regular season when they won. So St. Louis wins. They move on to the conference semifinals. Houston versus RSL. Honestly, RSL's been looking questionable the past couple of weeks. Houston's been looking really good. They won the Open Cup. I think Houston's going to sweep. I think Houston's going to win the tie, and they're going to sweep. They're going to get both wins, 1 in Houston, 1 in Rio Tinto, or America First Field, but who calls it that? Houston is just, right now, the better side. Better coached, better team spirit, better results. They got it done on decision day. Houston beats RSL. I call it another sweep. Houston versus St. Louis, a conference semifinal. Of course, Cincinnati, Philly, and Columbus, Orlando on the eastern side. LAFC versus Vancouver. LAFC has been questionable most of this year. Vancouver, this isn't the mid-team they threw into Champions Cup, but I still think LAFC has the firepower that they win 2 out of 3. Yes, I think it's going to be a LA win in LA, a Vancouver win in Vancouver, thanks to Richie Laryea and Sam Adekugbe having a great game, and then, of course, LAFC winning at home, finishing it off, a 2-1 win for LAFC. A 2 wins to 1 win. LAFC still has Denny Bouanga, the Golden Boot winner. They have beaten teams. It's not like they've completely bottomed out. They still made the playoffs at 3rd place. Or they still made the playoffs in a good position. 1st, 2nd. I think Houston, then LAFC. Yeah, 4th. It was 3rd until decision day. Then Houston won. But LAFC, I just don't see them losing to Vancouver. I think Vancouver is a beatable team for them. They build from that, or I won't say they build from that, but they get to the conference semifinals. And then finally, Seattle versus Dallas, 2 versus 7. So much for the rebuild, right? That I was talking about back earlier in the year. All they're doing is rebranding, not rebuilding. That is an ugly logo, though. But they're still here. Crazily enough, Seattle's still here. They got the decision day win, 2-0. Seattle's still here. And Dallas, they've been really questionable most of the season. They've had like one good run of form. For me, things always happen good for Seattle when they play Dallas. They just do. Seattle wins 2-1. I think they win both. Actually, I'm going to go differently. Seattle loses game 1 at home, but they win the last 2. I'm going to go a bit differently. They get punched in the mouth, but they come back and win the next 2 games, and they reverse sweep. How about that? We're going to go with it. I feel like that could happen. They need a little bit of chaos this year. I think it'll happen. Seattle, though, they've been really good this year. Way better than I expected. And Dallas has been soft and questionable. Seattle moves on to the conference semifinals. So again, Eastern semifinals. Cincinnati versus Philly. Columbus Crew versus Orlando. West, St. Louis City versus Houston Dynamo. LAFC versus Seattle Sounders. We move back to the East. Now we're into single elimination. But from the quarterfinal, the conference semis to the conference final to the MLS Cup final, 90 minutes, extra time, then penalties. The wild card's the only one that ends straight at 90, straight to pens. So we're clear. But this is back to single elimination, 1 game, higher seed hosts, or better team hosts. Cincinnati hosts, Orlando hosts, St. Louis hosts, Seattle hosts. At least in the conference semis. Cincinnati versus Philly. Cincinnati wins. Again, last year, they almost beat Philly. In Philly. This time they're playing in Cincy. They won the Supporters' Shield. They have a slightly better team. And Philly is about to implode in the locker room. Vibes-wise. Cincinnati might be slightly fraudulent. But again, all the signs point to Cincinnati having the opportunity to overcome that. And I think Cincinnati will beat the Philadelphia Union. Philadelphia East. Slightly east. Southeast. Well, it wouldn't be southeast, but yeah, slightly east. Philadelphia slightly east is going to beat the actual Philadelphia Union and go to the conference final. Columbus Crew versus Orlando. Orlando hosts, of course. Orlando City are going to win because it's a 1-game tie. Orlando looks like they're on a heater right now. Duncan McGuire's on a purple patch. See what I did there. And for me, I just see Orlando finding a way to beat Columbus, and Duncan McGuire is probably a big reason for it. Orlando on to the conference final. Orlando goes to Cincy in the Eastern Conference Final. Conference semifinal, St. Louis versus Houston. This game is not going to be easy by a long shot, just so you know. But I think St. Louis still is tactically better than Houston. I still think St. Louis has a more well-developed team spirit. And I think Bradley Carnell is still a better tactical coach than Ben Olsen. I just do. St. Louis moves on to the conference final. St. Louis hosts Houston, of course. Also being at City Park really helps, at least in that case. LAFC versus Seattle. I think Seattle's the better team right now. I do. I think they're the more connective team. Not connective. consistent. The more consistent team. I think they play better right now. I think they're in a better position to win. Right now, I think LAFC is looking very shaky. And even though they may build something from that Vancouver tie, I still think Seattle hosting them, playing as well as they have, beating St. Louis on decision day, beating Dallas. I just see Seattle going to the conference final again in what could be their last rodeo with their current core, which actually is because Lodero is leaving, but it is their last ride with their current core, but I don't think they have to rebuild as much as it seemed back in January. Now on to the conference finals. Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati hosts Orlando in the East. St. Louis City hosts Seattle Sounders in the West. We go to Cincinnati versus Orlando. I think this is where the fraudulence of Cincinnati comes to bite them. Orlando City goes to Cincinnati and shocks the Knifey Lions. The Purple Lions go and shock the Knifey Lions and get to the MLS Cup final, thanks to Duncan McGuire being the true Rookie of the Year. They get their way to the MLS Cup final. Orlando's just been so hot right now. They are on a purple patch. Again, see what I did there? They are on a purple patch that you can't question. Orlando to the final. Then, Seattle. St. Louis City SC versus Seattle Sounders. I got St. Louis City. They're going to want to make a point. This is the one time they have to beat a bigger team than them. Have to beat a big fish. They haven't really played well against the big fishes in the West, or in the East for that matter, this whole season. But they still finished first, which is weird when you think about it. And we're a point away from beating the all-time record for expansion sides. But you know what? Maybe they were playing possum. Maybe they knew that they would go deep. And they knew that maybe it's better to save what you know, save what you could do for the time that it actually matters. And I think that's what they were doing. I think they were playing 4D chess. And I don't think they played that bad against Seattle. But St. Louis has a point to prove at City Park in late November, early December, whatever you want to call it. I don't know exactly. Maybe it's the second. I think it is. I think it is early December. But St. Louis gets it done. St. Louis beats Seattle, and they go to the MLS Cup final to host Orlando City. City Park will host the MLS Cup final in St. Louis's first year as an MLS side. St. Louis City SC versus Orlando City SC. The MLS Cup final in my book. And I think St. Louis is going to win the MLS Cup in their expansion season. I think so. I think St. Louis, the way they play, is absolutely a way that Orlando can't win. Orlando cannot win going against St. Louis. St. Louis's system is perfect to snuff out Orlando, especially over 90 minutes, 120, or penalties. I think it ends in 90. I think João Klaus, Edouard Levin, Giacchini. St. Louis does what they have to do to be the first expansion side since Chicago, because Chicago was expansion when they won the Cup. Yeah. Funnily enough, who does it next, right? St. Louis. St. Louis, of all places. Suck on that one, Chicago. St. Louis will win the MLS Cup in 2023. 1 year, 1 cup, 1 star, no problem. They're already in Champions Cup, but you know what? Yeah. Let's go St. Louis. Am I a little bit biased? Maybe. But I think they can. This ain't like the Toronto Leagues Cup prediction. Let's not... I did have St. Louis versus Toronto in the final there. But this ain't like that prediction. St. Louis has matured from that, and they're actually good. Toronto was Cloud Cuckoo Lander in the Leagues Cup, and you know it. But had Toronto been in this tournament, it would have been Toronto versus St. Louis once again. So. But this seems realistic, even though it might be a bit biased, is what I'm saying. So, with that being said, my MLS Cup champions are the St. Louis City SC. As, of course, I'm wearing the shirt. But St. Louis, do me proud. Okay? Do the Rav boys proud. Do the Toasted Rav boys proud. And bring it home at City Park. Okay? There you go. With that being said, or maybe TQL Stadium if Orlando doesn't win in the conference final, but I think they will. With that being said, if you like this video, like it, share, subscribe. You know what it is. Tell your friends. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification. Subscribe. Send super chats on the live streams. Comment on this video. Put us in place. Share with friends and family. All that great stuff. I shall see you tomorrow when I go live for the Eastern Wildcard match. Charlotte versus the New York Red Bulls. Live for SKC versus San Jose Earthquakes. And reviewing Kansas City versus San Jose. We're ready for the playoffs. Let's have some playoff fun, my friends. There you go. I'm Ryan and I'm out. Peace. See you later.